Well, you know, I'm a Midwest kid. I grew up in Detroit, far away from the ocean, but surrounded by water, the Great Lakes. So this is ironic. I came here the first time when I was 14, and I knew that I would come back to Southern California. When I came back, I was at the Golden Bear watching B.B. King, and I was in the front row, and I always look at walls. I get excited by blank canvases, and I saw the side wall was really ugly. It was just a brick wall. So I started sketching it on my sketchbook, and Rick, the owner of the Golden Bear, said, "What is that?" I go, "Well, that's your building." He goes, "I know." He goes, "Can you do that?" I go, "Tomorrow." You know, here I am, I'm a starving, unemployed artist. So he goes, "Well, how much?" I go, $300, believe it or not. And this is back in like 78. I says, "But you got to feed me. I get to go to every concert I want to, and free food." You know, that's the key word for artists. And oh, he was excited. And it took me about, I don't know, 6 days to paint the mural. But I'll tell you what, it was a landmark here in Huntington for a long time. And a lot of people were, you know, sad when it left. But I love what they did. And I love that they're going to keep the message of the Golden Bear and all the music that inspired, you know, me and, you know, multitudes of people.
Who actually went to the Golden Bear? I was hoping it would be that many people. So this really is kind of like a reunion. So thank you very much for coming here today as we're about to unveil a plaque for arguably Huntington Beach's most beloved, cherished historic landmark, the Golden Bear nightclub. We have some great people that are going to talk to you today. My name is Chris Epping, by the way. I'm not one of those great people. I'm just a local newspaper columnist with the Huntington Beach Independent newspaper, and I'm a music journalist as well. I also want to welcome, we've got a list of people. Councilman Joe Carchio will be up here in a couple of minutes. I see Councilman-elect Billy O'Connell is here. Councilman-elect Eric Peterson is here. Councilwoman-elect Barbara Del Glaze. Planning Commissioner Lynn Sametta. City staff, Kelly Fritzl, Deputy Director of Business Development, Travis Hopkins, Director of Public Works, Scott Hess, Director of Planning and Building, Fire Chief Patrick McIntosh, Police Chief Robert Handy, and City Manager Fred Wilson are all here. Thank you very much for all being here, everybody. Round of applause for our city officials. And just very briefly, before bringing our guests up to speak today, I wanted to tell you, as a music journalist, it's amazing to me how many artists you can interview that when the subject of the Golden Bear comes up, they just become awash in memories and stories and anecdotes. I can tell you firsthand, speaking to people like Jackson Browne and Steve Martin and members of the Byrds, they all have these stories about the Golden Bear. The one that stood out to me in particular was Peter Gabriel, who I had heard this rumor that in 1977, 78, Jim Washburn probably knows the exact date. Were you there? Okay. Great local music writer, Jim Washburn. Peter Gabriel, I had heard this rumor that on his first solo tour after leaving Genesis, performed here, but then slipped out the back under this moonlit sky at midnight and went for a swim in the ocean. So when I sat down with him, I just mentioned Huntington Beach, and he stopped me there and he filled in the blanks. He told me how his band had arrived early that day, and he's speaking in this beautiful, elegant English accent describing our city by the sea, and how he went to Jack's Surfboards and bought his very first boogie board, and that during the encore, while the crowd was going crazy in the Golden Bear, he did in fact slip out the back with his boogie board all by himself, crossed the PCH here, went into the ocean, and had this amazing moonlight swim unto itself. So there are thousands of stories like that get to the heart of why this place was and is so special. And I'd like to first call up Councilman Joe Carchio, who I believe in his last official appearance as a councilman is going to share his thoughts today on the plaque and the Golden Bear. Councilman?
Thank you, and welcome everybody. This is a long time coming, and I knew the sun was going to come out today because the sun always shines in Huntington Beach on great things. So this is, since I've been a councilman, I got here in 2006, I've talked to so many people about resurrecting the Golden Bear. And sometimes it was really difficult because it was hard for us to know that it was going to be a real difficult thing to resurrect the Golden Bear the way it was before. It was almost impossible because of, as you can see, all the people that performed at the Golden Bear, some of them are dead and some of them would never come back. So I had talked to Carol many times about how are we going to honor the Golden Bear. And at one point we came across the Historic Resources Board, and they decided that they wanted to do something with the Golden Bear. So I got together with Mayor Harper, and he and I decided that we were going to bring a council item forward to honor the Golden Bear. We are here today because of that. And I want to thank all of our folks in the city that work so hard, and also the Historic Resources Board for coming up with the wording for the plaque. It's something that it's something that you have to honor. There's certain things in a city that are so important to you, and that you can't let it slip through your hands. And this is one of them. Triangle Park was another one. But this was something very, very special. Nothing could ever replace what happened at the Golden Bear. Never. The people that performed, the people that came here, the people that remember, you folks that were here, that came here to see this happen today. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank everybody that had something to do with making this possible. I want to thank my colleague, Mayor Harper, for partnering with me on this. And I want to thank all of you for coming today, and for all my colleagues, all the new colleagues coming, all my old colleagues, and all the people colleagues I've served with over 8 years. It's really been a special ride, and I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to serve you over these past 8 years. So with that, I think that we can unveil this plaque honoring the Golden Bear. And I want to especially thank, I really want to especially thank Carol for working so hard over these years and just being persistent in getting us to honor the Golden Bear. So with that, thank you very much.
Originally, Councilman Carchio mentioned the Historic Resources Board. David Wentworth, their president, was to have been here today. He had something he had to deal with, and so his brother, Dwayne Wentworth, if you know the Wentworth name, they're one of the first names in Huntington Beach history. I know their mom, Alicia Wentworth, would have loved to have been here today. She was a city historian for years, somebody I worked with when I first moved here and writing a couple of books about the city. But on that note, he's connected to the first mayor, Ed Manning, of the city. So Dwayne, would you come up and share your thoughts with us, please? Dwayne Wentworth?
Hi everyone, my name is Dwayne Wentworth. I'm the chair of the city's Historic Resources Board, and on behalf of the HRB, I'd like to thank all of you that took the time to attend today. This is great. The HRB is constantly researching the history and significance of lost historic buildings while trying to preserve the few that are left. Rarely does the loss of a historic structure stir memories and emotions of people like the sheer mention of the Golden Bear. When we were first approached to help create a plaque for the Golden Bear, our first reaction was, why wasn't this done years ago? But the better question might be, why was it torn down in the first place? For someone as passionate about preserving history as I am, none of the official reasons really hold water, but that's a long story for another day. Our initial plaque design was to include a full list of all the acts that had performed at the Golden Bear. We soon realized that this building probably wasn't big enough for a plaque that size. The list of the people that performed here, the size of that list is amazing, both in its size and its content. The Bear was more than a legendary venue that included incredible array of famous acts. It was a sonic temple for music, ideas, and laughter. For some, it was a place to try out their acts in a smaller, more intimate setting. I think most people just love playing there. There's always lots of bits of history and stories floating around about the Bear, like how Peter Tork of the Monkees once worked there as a dishwasher, and the Rolling Stones allegedly snuck in the back door to watch Graham Parsons one night. And did Jimi Hendrix really ever play there? I don't know that. There's other people that could answer that, not me. I do know one of my favorite memories was back in the late 60s. I was working on the beach crew, and I used to sneak up to the Fisherman Restaurant parking lot across the street, and I could listen clearly to the likes of Janis Joplin, Linda Ronstadt, or Neil Young from the parking lot over there, and I did that quite often. Venues like the Golden Bear aren't created, I don't know, they just happen for some unexplained reason. and attempts to recreate another one have all failed, although don't we all wish somebody could pull it off. So today we're here to honor the Golden Bear and hope that this plaque brings fond memories to the community and also tells a story to our many visitors here about a very, very special place that once stood at this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. And by the way, Jackson Brown confirmed to me, the Peter Torkstra, Jackson Brown was the one who, in the Golden Bear, told him, hey, there's this audition up in LA that they didn't like Stephen Stills for. Why don't you go do it? And that's how he landed the part in The Monkees. So anyway, how many stories like that happened in there, though? Probably thousands. Next up, Carol Babaraki Kirby, Chuck Babaraki, and Kevin Kirby all were managers, supervisors, owners of what's arguably considered the Golden Bear's golden era, early 1970s through the closing in mid-1960s. Collectively, I'd like to have them come up now and share some of their anecdotes, what it was like to be there, to live there, to work there, and just experience the place on a day-to-day basis, if you would. Thank you.
Hello all, and good afternoon. I'm going to read from a prepared statement. Unfortunately, I'm not a very good speaker, so I had to write these thoughts down first up. I'd like to thank all the members of Huntington Beach City Council, the Huntington Beach Historic Resources Board, and all of you that are here. In particular, I would like to thank Councilmember Joe Carchio for all he has done to make this day happen. During its years in existence, the Golden Bear was a cultural icon, known around the world, located across the street from the pier in Surf City, Huntington Beach, California. Built in 1929 by famous chef Harry Bacra, the Golden Bear played host to many of the greats from Hollywood early years, giants of the silver screen such as Errol Flynn and Lionel Barrymore. Harry was also known as a warm humanitarian who fed those in need during the Great Depression, along with any serviceman that was returning from the war. Del Kaufman brought music to the Golden Bear in 1963. Wanting to simply open a venue for folk music, under his watch, the Golden Bear played host to the likes of the Buffalo Springfield, Hoyt Axton, the Byrds, and even promoted Bob Dylan. George Nikas took over in 1966 and saw the music of the time explode into rock and roll. Many legends of classic rock honed their skills playing small clubs as the Golden Bear. Hall of Fame artists such as Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, Arlo Guthrie, all spent some time performing in Huntington Beach. The Golden Bear was becoming a true rock and roll destination. Rick, Chuck, and Carol Babaraki purchased the club from George in 1974 and saw the golden years of the Bear until its close in '86. The club, now a rock and roll institution, was known around the world and became the starting point, as well as a historic gig for many artists. Acts such as B.B. King always found time to stop by and wow us with his blues. Robin Williams spent a week working on some new material, a show about babies, childbirth, and rearing children that he would soon tape for HBO. MTV was a new sensation, and Men at Work played the Huntington Beach to warm up for their American tour. The list goes on. Peter Gabriel, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Linda Ronstadt, Steve Martin, Van Halen, members of the Grateful Dead, shows that are talked about and still remembered to this day. Hundreds of thousands of people attended shows at the Golden Bear over the years. Couples met at the Bear, got married, raised children, children who in turn went to the Bear. Employees got their start in the entertainment business and moved on. Peter Tork, we've talked about earlier, of the Monkees, wore glasses there. Brian Roberts, a major television producer, was chef. Mark Duffield, lightman extraordinaire for Jay Leno, adjusted lights there. Master soundmen Bill Vellutini and Roy Zartman mixed many a show there. A little-known artist at the time by the name of Weiland painted a musical mural on the side of the building. While working at the club, I met my lovely wife Carol there. The Golden Bear touched the lives of many who grew up in this county and changed them forever. History was made here. The evolution of rock and roll from folk music of the 60s to the MTV age of the 80s occurred here. The way we listen to music, the technology of music, and how music is distributed changed here. Remember 45s? How about vinyl albums, cassettes, CDs? Now it's digital downloads. Music changed through the year, but through all these changes, artists of all genres continued to play the Golden Bear. It was a small venue by today's standards, with a capacity of only 300. The artists and the audience fed off each other in this intimate setting, creating memorable shows that are still talked about to this day. All types of entertainment filled the club. On any given night, you could experience folk, blues, rock, jazz, country, comedy, poetry, pop, new wave, R&B, you name it, they played there. All these different performers found a little bit of magic and enthusiastic crowds in this quaint little dive across the street from the pier in Huntington Beach, California. To wrap this up, I want to again thank the City Council for this plaque, marking the location of this cultural and social icon right here in Surf City, California, so its memory will live on for generations to come. Thank you all who attended.
Hi, thanks for coming. I'm Chuck Babaraki. Rick and Carol and I were the last owners of the Golden Bear. You know, Joni Mitchell said in a song, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone." It's been almost 30 years since the Bear was demolished, but it lives on in the memories of the thousands of people who experience the magic of its music. As our generation continues to gray, may this plaque serve as a reminder of our youth and the music we once shared. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming, and I know we have a lot of employees that came today, and a lot of people that grew up in the Golden Bear. My daughters work there, and it just was a wonderful place. I just couldn't tell you. The music was different every week, and it was amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. We also want to thank Joe Dyshant, who owns this building, who actually allowed this plaque to go here. So I don't know if Joe can hear us, but thank you very much, Joe. This reminds me, by the way, Steve Martin told me this story about when Steve Martin played here, he brought everybody out on the street from the club. It was like a bit of performance art. It must have looked something like this, because it was several hundred people. He brought them out, marched them across the street, had them all gather in the bushes over there, and then jump out and scream at somebody walking by as part of his act. And then he marched them all back into the club to complete the show, which, again, another Golden Bear moment. Two more folks left. First up, my friend Robert Carvonis wrote a book called The History of the Golden Bear. Robert grew up here in Huntington Beach, not just in love with the club, I mean, to a point where he wrote a book about it, but he also collects pieces of it. I brought along, Robert gifted me, he gave me a brick years ago from the Golden Bear, and I treasure this thing. And as I learned, there are backyards mysteriously throughout Huntington Beach that have brick pathways lined with these things. There are bits and pieces that people grab that they incorporate into their lives. They just don't want to let go. And it's pieces like this and people like Robert that I think continue this tradition. So Robert, if you would share your thoughts.
All right, thank you. It's going to be tough to do without reading, so. I'm proud and honored to be here. I'd like to thank the City of Huntington Beach and the Historic Resources Board for letting me be a part of this plaque unveiling ceremony. And thank you to everyone in attendance for being a part of this. I should thank prolific writer Chris Epting for the great introduction. He just told me he's already polished off his book about today's ceremony, somehow. It'll be published. Yeah, it'll be published by this evening, I guess. Like I said, I'm Robert Carvonis. I wrote the book, A History of the Golden Bear, Huntington Beach. It really was a lot of fun and a labor of love. I'm a native son of Huntington Beach. I attended Huntington Beach High School. Best 6 years of my life. No. I just threw in a couple jokes to help me with my nervousness. I was going to picture everybody in their underwear, but then I heard Matt Liffring was going to be here. I'm like, not such a good idea. So I attended my first concert at the Golden Bear when I was only 13 years old. I saw the Steve Morse band that night. Steve Morse, formerly of the Dixie Dregs. That night, I ended up going backstage. They all signed the back of a Golden Bear napkin for me. And when the band was introduced, I walked out right behind them from the backstage into the showroom. And a pretty awesome feeling for a kid. Before the Golden Bear closed, when I was only 15 years old, I was able to attend 5 more shows, including the great Robin Williams in the summer of 1984. These experiences obviously had a lasting impression on a young kid, And those experiences fueled the passion that led me to the research and writing of the book. And now the city of Huntington Beach is officially honoring the memory of the Golden Bear with this great plaque, and I couldn't be happier. I'd like to thank everyone involved, especially Carol Kirby, who owned the Golden Bear with her husband Rick, as was mentioned before. It was her efforts that really got this off the ground. I think without her, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you, Carol. I'd also like to thank Chuck Babaracki, Rick's brother, who's also a co-owner, Kevin Kirby, who you met, who worked there as a manager, Roy Zartman, master sound engineer, and everyone else who worked there and helped create a legend. It's truly your hard work all those years ago that we're celebrating today. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Once again, I'd like to thank the city of Huntington Beach. My only regret is that fellow music lover Mayor Harper was unable to attend today. They're having a 2-for-1 sale on hats at the Men's Warehouse. I would like to close with a serious quote. This quote is not from a famous person or any dignitary, but from an average citizen who grew up in Huntington Beach. This quote is from David Lassard. He writes, "Aside from the pier, I can't think of a more defining landmark than the Golden Bear. It joined generations and brought the music and comedy culture directly into our hometown. Long after its rubble has been swept away, it forever lays in the hearts of those who remember it. Now with this dedication, it will bring the memory of the Golden Bear to everyone who passes by." Nicely put, David. Again, thank you all.
But Robert came armed for bear. Very quickly, I grew up in New York. I wish I grew up in Huntington Beach, but I didn't. And I remember distinctly the first time I heard of the Golden Bear, it was in 1976 or 77. In high school, there was another club that should be there that is no longer in New York City called CBGB. And we were there, some high school buddies and I, at about 2 o'clock in the morning. The Ramones had just finished this amazing set. And we sat at the bar and waited for them. And they were wiped out. We were talking to them, and they had flown in that morning, I think, and they were telling us about, they said, we played this, we were asking them all about where they had been. They said, we just got back from California, we had played this amazing club, and there was a pier right outside, and it's on the ocean, a place called Huntington Beach, and it's called the Golden Bear. And these 4 guys were just, it was this amazing memory of New York City in the middle of the night, hearing these guys, these 4 guys from New York, and those thick New York accents talking about their love of this place, which they had just experienced. So again, you never know where these memories end up. These musicians carry them all over the world, and even in, it lives on and on and on. Last but not least, Roy Zartman, who was a sound man on and off from the Golden Bear, mid-70s, 1980s. You probably heard more bitching from artists than anybody as a sound man. But Roy, if you would tell us a couple of stories, we would appreciate it. Roy Zartman.
Thanks, Chris, for that introduction, and I'm really honored to be thought of in this dedication of this plaque here to a fallen building that I hold dear in my heart for so many years. It was more than a nightclub. It was really a launching pad in a career for a lot of people who played there, as well as a lot of people who were technicians there. I know Bill Vagliatini, who passed away in 2011. Him and I were best friends for many years. And we went off to do sound at every dang club in Orange County, Riverside, and a lot of them all over the coast and everywhere, and did 1 million shows since then. And it was really, really a wonderful place. And I'm really kind of verklempt right now. Just trying to think of things to say, but I really, really want to thank you guys for having me up here to say a few words. So.
And on that note, if everybody who spoke would like to gather around for the official unveiling of the Golden Bear plaque, we're going to do that right now. So come on up. 2, 3. I want to thank, by the way, community service today. It was Julie Toledo. Great job today. Public Works, thank you very much. Everybody, these things are harder than you think. I know it's like a plaque on a wall. It should be easy, but a lot goes into this. So thanks very much to the city for all you did. And we appreciate everybody coming out today, too. What a great get-together. Some amazing people in this crowd today.